we doing cold opens before? I think we did do a cold open.
I think we tried Poth, but whatever.
Poth. We got to figure out a
Yeah,
name.
Poth.
We tried.
Didn't
Poth,
we
it
have?
didn't work.
Didn't we have like an actual like intro thing?
Oh, I mean, we have
one
the
point?
intro. We have an intro.
No, but I mean, we had like an actual. Here's how we're gonna. I don't know.
I think we had an
It's
intro.
been a long time.
And
It's been a long time.
I think it kind of went like this. Boom! I tricked everyone, including myself, with the open. Welcome everyone back to Runeterrable Radio. We've got stuff to talk about. I am your host, Blevins. Joining me as always is Saucy Man. What's up, buddy?
That's me. How's it going, bud?
It's going great, and we are joined again by the one and only Charmer. Welcome back.
I appreciate you having me come back. I was a little unsure that I would get to come back after how badly, how poorly, how unexcitable, how uneventful my last visit to this show was.
We like to give everyone at least a second chance, and that includes you, friend of the show. The early days are behind us.
We had a
and we can only
great
look forward.
episode, okay, Charmer? I loved that episode. Now
Well,
I
I
feel
need you
bad.
to understand. I need you to understand that you're going to have me back at least a third time because one time that something happens, it could just simply be an anomaly. Twice might be a coincidence, but 3 times is a trend. And so I need you to understand that I have a complete trend of letting you down.
Okay. We'll give you the chance to fulfill the prophecy of letting us down.
So you're saying that
When I've let you down 3 times, I level up.
Yep, that's true.
Ooh, bringing it back to the game. So you're saying if we have you back a third time, we're going to be trending. Runeterrable Radio is going to be trending on Twitter.
Oh, gods no. No. If you have me back a third time, the only thing you're going to be trending is in Cthulhu's dreams. He might actually wake up after such a disaster.
Well, we're gonna have to just see if that happens. Regardless, we'll have to wait for that third time, but you'll definitely get that. You'll definitely get the call back. I mean,
I love that.
I know the guy that
Maybe
guy that does the invites for the show, so I can get you back.
I can start making every guest into a Runeterra card because I have that template I made.
Ooh.
So his will be when I've let you down 3 times, level up.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And if you really want to give it some flavor text, you could say third time's a charm.
Ooh, that's a good flavor text. Because your name is like Charmer, and there's 3rd time's a charm.
Wait,
yeah.
I don't get it. Okay,
later.
I thought we were going to talk about our brand new logo for 40 minutes, but actually we're just talking about mindless banter for the first 40 minutes of the show.
That was the
fine.
Pre-show, yeah.
That's fine. That was it was the post credits pre-show, and now we're getting into the show where we're going to talk about Legends of Runeterra, because guess what, guys? We're going to be playing in the open beta on the 23rd if you pre-registered.
Yes.
If you haven't already, guys, make sure you go to playruneterra.com.
Yeah, it's playruneterra.com.
Playruneterra.com and pre-register so that you can get in a day early and play with all of us, because that's going to be great. But we've got open
and
beta.
Unless you're listening to this live, you're too late. Because it's got to be today to get your 1 day early access. It's on the 15th.
Oh, it's the 15th. I thought it was the 19th. Oh, well,
I don't know. It might be the 19th.
I don't know either.
It's sometime between the 15th and the 23rd.
You should have already done it. I mean, this is going to be the best card game that Riot has come out with in the last 5 years. So
true.
I can say that without a doubt, honestly.
Well, what about? Oh, nope, can't reveal that. No, I don't know. I have
NDA.
Yeah, and I have a friend DA with Riot. Jerry Riot himself actually told me not to say anything. So,
yep. It is confirmed. It's the 19th by 11:59 p.m.
Ooh.
Some time zone.
I was gonna say, what time zone is it?
Some time zone.
Pre-registering online.
Okay, I just pre-registered for me. Had my bot do it for me.
Love that you didn't. Before we just dive into mindless banter for like another hour, Charmer, real quick, for those who don't know you, give us a little synopsis who you are, a little bio, a little who is.
All right, so it all started
Mhm.
in 1983.
Ooh.
And a man loved a woman very, very much. I'm just kidding. My father did not love my mother. He was an alcoholic and he beat her a lot. But they had a relationship that resulted in me. And some many, many years later, I fell in love with card games. And I decided one night in my basement to start streaming on Twitch. And I fell in love with playing digital card games and or strategy games via the internet with strangers, et cetera, et cetera. And it led me to where we are now. But along the way, like if people care about credentials or that sort of thing, I do casting. So if you're familiar with the Elder Scrolls Legends, I did the Master Series for them. If you're familiar with Artifact, I cast the We Play tournaments for them. I've done some Magic events. I've done some like Dota Underlords events, things like that. So I'm known for casting, and I'm hoping to do that with Legends of Runeterra because I love the game. So
Well, I can say with confidence that if people are watching a show that I'm on, then they don't care about credentials. So no need.
Who is this guy?
Who is this guy? I don't know, but I just keep putting out more shows, so people eventually are like, "Oh, that's the guy that's also on that show." Great.
Yeah.
Let's see who he has on this week, so we can actually listen to the show.
Love it.
So yes, that is Charmer. You are more than credentialed to be on here, and you also. So before we get into, I teased it a little bit before, but let's just announce this now, Saucy. We have our new logo, which if you're watching on YouTube, it's down there somewhere. If you're listening on the podcast, then if you squint really, really hard. That there's no magic.
It doesn't
here.
work, yeah.
You go to our Twitter at Runeterrable, and you can see our little guy there. He's got he's a little Poro guy. He's at a mic. He's got a little beard and a hat. And we need some names for him, or we need you to vote on some names because we've got some front runners here.
Yeah, we have a plethora of names. So yeah, we put it out like, hey, we need someone to name the mascot. And we've gotten a handful of good ones and a couple not good ones.
We had a really good one actually from you, Charmer, before we started the pre-show. Do you want to throw your name into the hat, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody knows me, they know that I love a good dad joke, a good pun. And so when I saw that little guy, I thought immediately it should be Benicio del Poro. Got some pushback, though. You guys suggested maybe Guillermo del Poro, and I'm okay with either, as long as it's some sort of del Poro.
Mm-hmm. I'm just a
Comes
big
from the Del Poro lineage.
Family.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as it's in the Del Poro lineage. I'm just a big fan of Guillermo del Poro. I just loved Hellboy movies, and I didn't really like Pan's Labyrinth because I can't read and I don't know Spanish, so that was kind of a miss for me. But all of his other work I just really, really liked. So, what else do we have? Oh, we've got Terry. That was one from Joshy, who has also been on the show. Runeterrable Terry. That's a pretty good. I mean, that's got a ring to it.
Yeah,
that's the second option. And then by complete chance and accident, we also threw in Scruffle
because it's cute. So
it is cute, and he does kind of look like a Scruffle.
He looks. I would, if I saw him walking down the street, I'd be like, "You look like a Scruffle."
Oh, look at a little Scruffle. Look at a little Scruffle.
And then he pulls out a hammer and just blasts you.
Right. That's his thing. He's got a hammer. Scruffle has a hammer. But I don't know. Were there any other ones that we want to throw in? We'll throw a poll up on Twitter. For you to vote.
Tell us what you like, what you think.
And if we don't agree with it, we'll probably just pick whatever we want anyway. But
I'll just delete it.
Yeah, I'll just.
If the poll goes the wrong way, I'll just create hundreds of Twitter accounts and just vote for the one I like. Yes. So it's just like regular voting in America.
Voting complete. So we've got the bot on our end to do the voting. So definitely do that. But okay, let's talk about the announcement we got. We got an official announcement. We've got open beta. Open, not closed, not just for the privileged few who watched hundreds of hours of Twitch videos to get an invite, but everyone will be able to play. Everyone will be able to play regardless if you listen to this episode in the future and forget to pre-register. Everyone gets to play on January 24th. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. Did that surprise either of you guys? I don't know if you had like privileged information, but that we didn't go to closed beta, we just went straight to open.
I mean,
I don't know if you can...
I'll answer it. I'll answer it worded this way. I was not surprised.
There you go.
So for those of you who weren't scouring the different various Discords and Reddits for Runeterra, like I was the day of the announcement, it was leaked from a Chinese source, or no, not the Chinese source. Sorry, it was leaked on. I guess leaked is probably not the right word. I don't know if it was meant to do that. They pre-posted the videos on YouTube and they scheduled the release for the date and time that it was supposed to go out, which was like 2 p.m. Eastern or something like that. I don't remember. But on some of the I think the Brazilian and one of the other ones, like it had in the description, join us or everyone can play or join us and play on January 24th. So everyone's like, oh, it's going to be, closed beta is going to be on the 24th or this. And I'm like, well, it doesn't actually say that. It says join us and play on the 24th. So maybe we'll have open beta on the 24th. And then maybe I had hope. I held out hope that we would be able to do closed beta that day. Though low key, I was kind of glad that we didn't because
I know I was not prepared.
My week would have been completely shot. So it's probably good to have a little bit of leeway in terms of not just opening the floodgate for that one.
Yep.
But I gotta say the official Runeterra Discord was I don't want to say amok because I think it was mostly tame, but there was a lot of wild speculation going on in that, and like different tangents, and like people were bringing up like, if you check Riot's job postings, there's a bunch of postings in Hong Kong, which means that for Runeterra, which means the development's done in Hong Kong, so they could release it on this, and like the tinfoil hats were on. And
that is down the rabbit hole.
Well,
for sure.
I gotta say, I may have been not instigating, but I was stirring the pot a little bit for some.
I could see
the
that
wackier theories because I just want to see people go for it.
Yeah. The price of oregano in Texas has gone up, and so one of the developers has a summer home there, and I just go. I'm excited.
I mean, I'm extremely excited for that because they also announced that we're getting ranked mode in this open beta season, which is a big thing because it's one thing to just be able to play. That's obviously great, but we are in an age of competitive min-maxing and degeneracy, especially when it comes to card games. So people want their ranks, they want their points. And everything about that. Charmer, what do you think about this early ranked mode? How are you feeling about it?
I mean, it's a ranked mode. I think that having a ranked mode is incredibly important. I think one of the things that hurt, say, like Artifact when that game launched was that it launched without a ranked mode because you need to give people a reason to keep coming back. And yes, this game's got a really great progression system. I like the quests. I like the pick a region and earn stuff for it. I like all of that, but beyond just expanding your collection for the people who are really diehard, for the people who want to test their mettle, and like, let's be honest, it's a Riot title, right? We're ingrained to associate Riot and our medallion status because some of us are iron plebs and some of us are diamond or challenger or whatever. We want that in a Riot card game the same way we do from League and the same way we already get it from Teamfight Tactics. So I think that launching with ranked is really important, but early on, I don't know what the significance will be other than bragging rights because we don't know anything about potential tournament modes, tournament formats. I've been talking to a lot of different people about ways that could go, and until we see like that side of things, the ladder will be just a bragging rights ladder, and that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, what are we but masters of fake internet points in this day and age? So
Yeah.
people definitely want that. And what better a way to flaunt your fake internet points than with the friends list, which is already coming out, which is
Yeah.
it's a big thing. I mean, I don't want to name any. Okay, actually, I do want to name names because I don't care. MTG Arena still like they just implemented it and it sucks. The friend friend requests and that. So it coming out and releasing open beta with friends mode and being able to challenge your friends, though I believe see on Reddit a confirmation that you're not able to play against people in other regions, which kind of sucks for
Okay.
a game like this because it's like, who cares? But I mean, Hearthstone's like that, right? You need to make an EU
Yeah,
account.
like I'm not really that surprised simply because when they did their most recent video, when they were talking about the social aspects, they had mentioned that your Riot friends list from like League of Legends is also going to already be imported here, and that's
Mhm.
already kind of region locked. So whatever
Right.
infrastructure they're using, it's going to have the same backstop.
Mhm.
And yeah, it is a bit of a bummer, but I'm not surprised now that we know that it's going to be intertwined.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm also not super worried. I mean, it does kind of stink if you want to play like I'm thinking in the future. Actually, not even necessarily in the future. Since we have a friends list, and if you can challenge your friends, like we can technically run tournaments regardless of what Riot does or doesn't give us, right? We can use Battlefy or Smash.gg or any other third-party tournament bracket thing to do that, and then just have people play the games. So it does kind of stink in the sense that like I know people in our community, there's people in EU, and like if you want to like we're probably going to be doing NA tournaments if we're doing anything at least for a while. So you kind of have to like put time into. I mean, it's nice that it's free, right? Like Hearthstone, like if you want to have a competitive deck in Hearthstone, like you better just and you're starting from nothing, just fork up some dough. This is you're going to have to put some time in, so it does kind of stink from that unless you can transfer your collections over, but I doubt it. We don't know anything about that, so I can't really speak to that, but it just kind of stinks to have to do that from that perspective. But maybe there will be something in the future to kind of mitigate that. But
yeah, one of the other things, like speaking about like future mitigation, one of the other things that I don't think has been directly addressed is whether or not your stock for wildcards carries over from session to session. So we know from the preview events that when you are purchasing wildcards directly, you can only purchase so many in any given time period, right? I believe that they had a weekly reset during the preview events, and you could buy X number of champion wildcards, epics, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Now, once your thing resets and your store restocks, if you will, I don't know if only going to ever refill to a max, like that's the most you can buy in any given period, or if you didn't buy any, if it's going to go above. And the reason that matters, the reason that distinction matters is because it's going to impact players who might not come over right at launch or might, stick playing their game. Like let's say you're a Hearthstone person and you stick with Hearthstone, but then 6 months from now you're disenfranchised with that game and Runeterra is doing really well, or now you're curious. You're gonna be in a position where if it's just a straight restock, if it doesn't kind of like pile up, if that makes sense, you won't be able to catch up to the people who do have that time investment. And I don't know how that's going to impact potential like onboarding for future players, right? And I don't think I've seen it addressed anywhere. So that's one of the things that I'm very curious to see how it works and how they address that kind of player onboarding issue going forward. Because we won't know right away, right? Like when it launches, we're just going to have our store and we're going to have to wait till we see the restock and go from there. But, Riot's smart. I assume they're going to have some sort of answer for this potential issue, but it is a barrier that I've been thinking about, right? Like, how do you entice the player 6 months from now when you've got your people who have been playing, they're enfranchised, they're, entrenched.
Mhm.
But then you get your new people who are like, okay, my friends are playing this now, I want to pick it up. And
Yeah.
how do you help them close the gap?
Yeah, that's something, I'm thinking about as well. I mean, not from me specifically, because we're obviously early adopters as people who have a Runeterra podcast.
Yeah.
But if, like a game like Shadowverse, for instance, like if I wanted to go and start playing Shadowverse competitively, I could just buy the best deck right now.
Yeah.
And like I'm in a position where I'm lucky enough to have like some money to be able to. I could spend $50 and probably buy a deck. I'm assuming I can probably buy a deck for $50 or get pretty close. And especially people who are in the what I like to call esports boomer age barrier, which is like the 30 plus. That's where that we're esports boomers at that point.
Yeah.
I have 9-to-5 job, and I'm certainly going to be a degenerate, especially when it comes out on mobile, and play at work. But like I don't have 16 hours a day to play, and I want to be able to just throw my $50-100 in, like I do with Hearthstone. Like I don't even really play Hearthstone anymore, but I'll if I see a cool card back or champion skin. Like I bought Mecha Jiraxis a while ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to buy this. Just throw $100 and get a bunch of packs and open packs. You can't really do that to the same extent in Runeterra.
Yeah.
Which I get their philosophy of like, we don't want it to just be pay to win or even have that as a consideration. But there is the other side of that coin where it's like, I'm not really trying to do pay to win. I just want to pay to be able to play the deck I want to play.
Yeah,
Right.
I wonder if they ever like even split the middle, where if they do have, let's say you're able to get like 3 of each or whatever it is for the wild cards, if they ever did, hey, we have an expansion coming up soon, we're gonna increase the amount of wild cards so people can build up their collection or something like that as well, and like specific time frames.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, on the one hand, you don't want people stockpiling wild cards before your expansion drops because you don't want them to have that next one necessarily day one
Mhm.
in its entirety. But on the other hand, you don't want new players to, potentially try it out and know that people are, let's just say like 30 hours ahead of you, and there's
Mhm.
no way to bridge that gap. I
Right.
can't like catch up to my friend. And I can think of a number of reasons why somebody would hop on the train late. Like I said, maybe you stick with your game
Mhm.
that you are playing now because of a sunk cost fallacy. And then later on, you're like, well, okay, I want to try this out. Or maybe the timing just wasn't right. You were traveling,
Mhm.
what's going on in your life, whatever.
Mhm.
Or maybe you're a big League of Legends fan, but you're one of those people who mains like 3 champions and your champion
Yeah.
just doesn't have a card yet.
Mhm.
But when that first expansion drops and now you're like me, your name is Charmer because you literally mained Ari for a long time, right? So like maybe that new expansion drops and Ari comes out and I'm like,
Mhm.
all right, well now I want to pick up the game.
Yeah.
How do I get up and going? And you don't have a good way to like bridge that gap.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
When I-
an interesting like quandary, and like I said, I think Riot will solve it. It's not like it's an unsolvable puzzle, but I'm just kind of curious what their approach is going to be, because they do want these stop gaps in place to make sure that people don't jump out right away at some sort of like economical advantage. But
Mhm.
when we're months in the future, you're only allowing people to catch up to where other people are, right? They're not shooting out ahead.
Right.
And so how do you manage that?
Yeah. That is a really good it's a really interesting problem. I do hope that, I mean, they could just do, we get, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but let's just say you get 10 a week of each one, just to make it easy. And then if you come in week 2, you can buy up to 20, then you could buy up to 30 in week 3, etc. Maybe they'll do that. I don't know.
yeah, who knows?
We'll have to see. And I just don't, because like I know, I mean, we hear we hear it all the time of, oh well, you can just buy the best deck in that deck, and I'm at a huge disadvantage in Hearthstone and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, I get that, and it's harder for me to empathize with that just because I've always been on the other end of it. Of like, well, when I played Magic, like my buddy owned a store, and I had a dozen friends who were all like Pro Tour qualifier level players, so we all had all the cards all the time. So it was like, well, I can just play whatever I want, right? And in Hearthstone, I
Right.
just bought everything. You know, or I played enough back in the day. I played enough to just have everything. Um, but I know people like I know some of my friends right now are not sold on Runeterra for whatever for one reason or another. And if they come in, like you said, Charmer, in 3 months, if they can only, you know, if there's always going to be that like buffer of 3 months that they can never catch up to, that I know at least some of my friends are just not going to want to play at all.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean, I was just going to say real quickly, I think there's a number of different ways that you can solve it in potentially elegant ways, right? If
Mhm.
your concern is that you don't want people stockpiling wild cards, then maybe it's not a restocking of the wild cards thing, but maybe, you know, they've already got a plan where 3 months from now they're going to introduce additional bundles designed for new players to catch up and close the gap.
Mhm.
They
That
could
could be
also go another route where they could say, like, if your account is you know, less than 30 days old or whatever, then we can give you access to this bundle where you'll get bonus XP, so that people close the gap as they like level up
Yeah.
their regions to
Mhm.
get where other people are, but not giving them more than what those other people already got. I think there's a
Right.
lot of ways they can do it.
Yeah.
We just haven't like seen any of that yet. And
Yeah.
so I don't know, I'm a bit of a nerd and I think about stuff like that.
No, and it's good because, like you guys said, timing is like also important because on January 24th, as well as the new Magic expansion. So the new Magic set comes out on the same day, and we have new Hearthstone content that launches the 21st. So, you know, in that whole sphere of competitive card games, there's a lot going on. So if someone is like, you know, practicing or grinding for some Magic tournament and that's all they're playing, and then a month down the road, they're like, oh, this game looks cool. But like you said, if there's no way to catch up, it might be tough.
Mhm. Yeah. One good thing in that for the beta that is sometimes not a great thing for we've seen with Magic and with Hearthstone way back in the day for betas is they did announce there's no more resets with the account. So that's another thing I hear all the time. They're like, I'm just gonna wait until we get no resets because like I don't want to play all that. Like I see the game, I can get the same experience from watching Dog play or watching Skara or whoever play that I can from playing or get a similar experience. And like I don't need to go in and play the cards myself because everything I do is just gonna get reset anyway. So now we can get people started right on the 23rd or 24th and they can keep going. I mean, it's little things like that. I mean, it's a big thing, but it's little things like that where it's like Riot knows what it's like to play in these betas, or at least the people that are on the Runeterra team. They know what it's like to play in these betas and how bad it feels when you're like, well, I did all this and I get to keep my gems that I bought with real money, but everything else goes away.
Yeah.
It just stinks, and it's great that the Runeterra team really has they get it.
Yeah, especially they haven't like announced all of about the cosmetics and stuff, but things like that where you like in MTG, like you get all these foil cards and then that you've worked for, and then all of a sudden, if you don't have these cool cards in release, like man, the deck just doesn't feel the same without my my bling bling. I like my bling bling.
Well, for MTG Arena, it was even worse because like you got a bunch of free cards from like they did a thing in the early, it was probably still technically the alpha for MTG Arena, where like they gave everyone like a playset of the staples from Kaladesh. So it's like everyone had the Gear Hulks and all of the like the 4-mana Chandra and like the mythics and stuff. It's like, oh sweet, I've got all these decks. And then in the next iteration, like that set wasn't even in MTG Arena. They just took it out.
It's just not there anymore.
Yeah. So and now they're like now just getting back to that. So it's like they did it the opposite of the way you should do it.
Exactly.
They gave you free stuff and then took it away, which I mean
took it away.
It's not they never like took your money or anything, right? Like they give if you paid money, you got that back in equivalent gems, which honestly could be good because like if I spent my gems and my wild cards on stupid stuff, I get those back in currency.
Not that we'd ever do stuff like that.
Oh, I did a lot of that. I'm willing to admit that I did a lot of stupid buying of cards. But like, man, it's not like they're taking your money, but like it feels just as bad to people when like you give them something and then you take it back. or like that you earned something with your time spent and then it's taken away. So really good on Riot. I mean, obviously they did the resets earlier, but they also only gave us a little taste anyway. So
Yeah.
Definitely good. And Saucy, you mentioned some cosmetics. We're getting some cute little guys. I don't know what they're called. What are they called? Are they called Guardians? I know they're not called Little Legends.
Guardians, yes.
Okay. I know they're not
Guardians
called
in this
Little
game.
Legends. That's all I know.
I keep calling them Little Legends.
I'm gonna call them Little Legends too, but
Me too.
I'm biased. I love TFT. We got
They're Guardians, man. They help you protect your Nexus.
It's okay. It makes sense.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But they're also little, and they're pretty legendary to me. So
how do you know that they're little?
They're smaller than I am.
Are you sure? Like when you put the card on the board, they're as big as the cards. As far as I'm concerned, T-Hex, for example, is as big as Lux. Like it's a giant robot T-Rex in my mind.
So the cards themselves are like 6 feet tall.
No, you're
like the Nexus is on the board, and it's as tall as the Nexus on my board. So clearly, this thing is a monster.
You're thinking about this way too much. I see it.
No,
and
I
it's
love
only
this.
it's only this big on my screen.
Can someone who's a math genius? I need someone to do the math.
Hold on, wait. Now it's bigger than me. Hold on.
Perspective. It's a weird camera lens trick.
Yeah, it's David Blaine made all of them.
Someone out there calculate how big these cards are in relation to how big a Nexus is now, because I got to know. Are these like 14-foot tall cards that we're playing with? Right. Are we giants?
Okay, so you're going back. Okay, so you're converting it down into League of Legends, where the Nexus is I don't know how big that would be, but yeah, okay, I'm starting to get it. So yeah, they actually are probably pretty big. Okay.
Like I'm just throwing this out here, right? Heimer, if you remember from the preview event, depending on his ability, makes different type of robots, right?
Yep.
The biggest one Heimer makes with his ability is a T-Hex. And if I remember, that thing was monster. It was like an 8/8 or something like that.
Yeah, it was big.
The T-Hex, the little guardian that you think is little, is really an 8/8 monster just hanging out, protecting. Just he's not
saving
little.
It.
Okay, crush your little legend.
I'm on board now. I've been sold. I'm willing to admit when I was wrong, and I was wrong. These things are massive, and we need
massive guardians.
Yeah, we need some.
That's why yours needs to be Guillermo del Toro, because they are the kaiju of the Runeterra universe.
I thought you were going to say they should be Guillermo del Toro because he is an absolute unit.
Well, I mean, he is an absolute unit of a director, but given his work with Pacific Rim, I think.
True. I mean, in Hellboy, let's pay some cadence to the original Hellboys, not the new one that came out with Hopper from Stranger Things.
Let's pay some cadence to the Guardians, and I want to know, what is your guys' favorite Guardian so far from the ones we've seen?
Oh, I have mine. Charmer, you go first.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Of the ones that we've seen,
yep,
my own personal favorite, and I know that this is probably blasphemy, but like it's just the normal Poro. Like the normal Poro is iconic. It is adorable. I own 3 pugs. It's the closest thing to a pug in game. And if I'm being honest, I said it during the last preview event, but I kind of find them terrifying because when you keep clicking on the regular Poro, it'll growl at you.
Yes.
And that's when you realize it has human teeth. And I never imagined the Poro in my head as having human teeth. And I don't know why I find it so concerning, but
yeah,
I can't get over that. So like if a Poro eats a Poro, is it cannibalism? I mean, I know that it is, but like it's a different thing once it has human teeth. It's the same reason why I don't eat pork, because like pork's teeth are very close to human teeth. There's a very famous like criminal case actually where they found human teeth, and then with testing they figured out it was actually pig's teeth because they're so similar. And I don't know. Anyway, this is a big tangent to say the straight up like white Poro is, as of right now, my favorite of the ones that have been publicly seen.
I mean, if we get a little fitted hat and a beard for the white Poro, then I'm all in on the regular white Poro. But I am what is his name? Gronk? Is it Gronk or
Gromp Jr.?
Gromp Jr.
Gromp Jr. I'm all in on Gromp Jr. I'm really liking I
think for me, it's either default Poro because I I love the Poros. They're so cute. Or T-Hex. I really like it. I'm a big fan of T-Hex.
I'm going to be calling him
Yeah.
Thex. Just
I'm fine with that. I have like this weird obsession with Heimerdinger. Like I made probably 14, 15 different Heimer
You
decks.
did inspire me to play him, and it turned
Yeah,
out
it's
magnificently.
It's one of my favorite cards. I love it so much. So just like, I don't know, you gotta have your little T-Hex there hanging out, and then you're making more of them. It's so dope. I love it.
I'm never going to be able to unsee the Poro with human teeth now.
I know.
It's going to haunt me now. Only on Runeterrable Radio and productions featuring Charmer will you know and be haunted by the fact that Poros have human teeth.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like it just weirds me out, man. But
It is.
I'm looking forward to like potential add-ons. Obviously, we've seen a bunch of different ones from Teamfight Tactics, right? The little legends. And there's a bunch of those models that I like. I'm curious to see what other ones we get that might be like just unique to the game. I think it'd be really interesting, for example, if we get like a little Voidling from Malzahar. For me, like my top 3 champs in League of Legends just historically are Ari, obviously because my name is Charmer and like I've got a lot of history there. And then I love Malzahar and I love Vi. So I'm going to be rocking the Piltover board because that's going to be the way that like I throw my homage to Vi. But if I could get a little Guardian that is a Malzahar Voidling,
That'd
like
be
I don't think I would rock anything else. Like I would rock that till the end of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Kiki little legend main right now, so I'd probably rock a Kiki, but I don't think we're gonna see those ones because those are the Louis Vuitton like crossover ones, and I'm too bougie to not run those.
So bougie.
I want to see like we've got the boards, we've got the Guardians. I want to see. I mean, card backs. I'm over card backs. Like I think that they're fine, but like you only need one card back. You don't need like there's no like I don't care about the collecting for card backs. Like once I got legend card backs in Hearthstone, I like used very few other ones. I want to see like and like animated or foil cards are cool. I want to see like alternate skin cards. Like I want to see like for champions. Like I want like okay, if they want to do like animated or foil or golden or whatever, they can do that. But I want to see like a set where I can get like Halloween Draven or something. I don't know what the actual skins are, but I want that.
I want to see some of those, but I'm hesitant because I also really like leaving open the design space in the card game, the kind of the way they did with Teamfight Tactics, right? Whereas you've got you've got Ash, but then here in set 2, they throw out the Crystal Ash, the Amethyst Ash skin, and she's part of the Crystal squad now. I really like the idea of being able to use some of the skin designs to allow you to print a different version of the same champion in the future with a different ability set. So like the Ash we have right now is obviously based around her Frostbite thing, and you get her arrow, which is very iconic. But again, if they print a different Ash in the future, and maybe her interaction is something about like Hawkshot, and maybe it's like revealing stealth characters that maybe we see in the future, blah blah blah. Like I think that would be a cool way for them to allow themselves to continue printing some of the champions that we love
and redo them,
but in a different way, in a different capacity, right? Because it's really hard in a single card to really cover all aspects of a champion properly. Like I'll use Malzahar as a great example, right? Like Malzahar is known for his Voidlings, but he's also known for his Space Pox, and obviously his suppression is like a big part of his kit. His ultimate is like his thing. So there's no way I'm going to get all 3 of those things properly like represented on a card. I'm not going to get that full immersive experience, but I could across multiple sets if I get like different versions of Malzahar. The same thing with Ari, right? When you release Ari, her dash, her charm, her orb, I'm not going to get all of that. But if you give me like skinned versions of her, and I can play different decks that do different things, but I'll still feature my favorite champions, I think there's a lot of room, both design wise and like marketing wise, to capitalize on that. So I do want to see alternate art cards with interesting skins, and I think the holiday ones would be a good way to do those, as you said, right? Like Halloween is a great example. Give me Pumpkinhead Fiddlesticks, sure. And it's just like an alternate version of regular Fiddlesticks, but then still leave me the possibility of using some of those other skins to explore future design space with the champions. Like that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep, absolutely.
I definitely want to see some sort of foil cards too.
There's got to
I
be.
want him to do it like this. I want him to be, if you have 3 of a card, you can turn those 3 into one foil version of the card. It's like this game I've tried before. It's really cool.
Oh yes, you get the level 3, and then if you get 3 foil ones, then you get the Halloween one.
Yeah, and then you get the sweet like platinum one.
I'm in. I mean, I'm in on it. It's just like, it's just going to be more of my time and money and effort and everything into it. And I mean, whatever they put out, I'm a slave right now to what they put out. So it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm really bad when it comes to cosmetics. Anyone who does know me on any sort of personal level knows, like, when it comes to Magic, I have to foil everything out.
Yeah.
So I played Teamfight Tactics all of one match before I spent $30 on the game. Because someone had a little legend that was cool, and I'm like, I gotta have it. So I went and spent $30 after my first match ever of the game. So I'm bad at it. So I'll be the same way. Like, oh my gosh, a new T-Hex? Let's go. $50, let's do it.
Yeah, it's the sad reality. It was a funny. This has very little to do with Runeterra, but I'm going to tell this story anyway. My I don't know. I need to tell it now.
Yep.
My girlfriend and our roommates went to a like a psychic convention thing, like for like getting psychic readings and whatnot, and like they're into the whole astrology and all that. I'm like, that's not my thing. And I'm like, she came home and she had like a spirit rock or something, and I'm like, you spent $20 on a rock and it doesn't do anything. And then I'm thinking like, yeah, I may or may not have bought digital objects from Riot literally earlier that day and spent twice as much on pixels. So I've got no.
Yeah, at least she has this
ground
physical
to stay.
thing.
At least you have a thing that you can throw at me for being an idiot.
Yeah,
I've got nothing.
It's so funny because when I was getting into Hearthstone, coming from Magic, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to care as much about gold cards in Hearthstone as I do foil cards in Magic. Like I physically have this shiny card. I'm like, oh. Nope. Let's another $100. Let's do it. Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's because it's about player expression, right? Digital games. I mean, in a way, Magic was kind of getting there, but really theirs was more about like the chase aspect and the collecting aspect. But I think digital games in and of themselves, specifically anything made in the last decade, have really realized that it is profitable for you to give players ways for them to express their own personality in the game in like a cosmetic way, right? Don't make it impact the actual gameplay itself, but let players do things in a way, or look a certain way, the way that they want to, because that's their self-expression, right? It's like me choosing what shirt I put on in the morning, and that's important to a lot of people. There's an entire fashion industry built on that exact concept. And so that's all this is. This is like digital gamer fashion. And we all have our own preferences and likes and dislikes. And the more that you enable us, the more choices you give us, the more we're going to buy it up.
Like, if you're telling me I could go to, like, if I physically attended a Legends of Runeterra tournament, I could get like artist signed cards. I would go to every single one.
Stop! You're costing me money already.
I've gone to so many Magic
ideas.
Grand Prix where I have not played in the Grand Prix. I've gone just to get artists to sign my cards. If you could get that on these cards, like if I could get a Thresh with an artist signature, I'm in. I'm in.
I just want to.
I'm traveling.
I just want to say shout outs to RK Post, the best Magic artist of all time.
Dude, I have a lot of RK Post signatures.
He's just the coolest guy.
You slaughtered pronouncing John Avon's name, for the record.
Okay, I'm while I do love RK Post's work and he does really great work, I'm not saying he's the greatest Magic artist of all time because of his work. I'm saying it because he's just he gets the most ridiculous requests for like altars and stuff, and he just handles them like a champ every time.
Dude, he's so nice too. He is so damn nice.
I've seen it happen, and if you're one of these people, stop being this person where someone will be in line, and RK or any other artist will be like, "Oh, hey, thanks for coming to my booth," and they just slap down a giant pile of cards, and they don't even say anything, and they just expect them to sign them, and then they don't leave a tip. Like
Oh, never.
I literally have two of his GP playmats that he did years and years ago. I got them altered to just have like a mustache put on them. And I left him a $20 tip, and he remembered me the next time I did it. I'm like, "Hey, can you?" And he's like, "Are you the mustache guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was me." He's like, "Okay, I know what to do here." So yes, don't be that guy. Respect the artist's time.
Yep.
At those GPs. Okay,
that had nothing to do with Runeterra. Let's go.
I'm just trying to get people to be better people.
Be
to
good.
Magic artists specifically. Okay, so. We had we saw in the little like video teaser that they showed, we saw some things get changed. I don't have the changes and whatnot written down. We're getting the patch notes on the 22nd, so we'll go over those on a show then. But we obviously played with cards in the second preview patch. Stuff was good, stuff was bad. I'll start with you, Saucy. Is there anything that you want to see change in terms of champions, balance, anything too good, anything not good enough? Need a little nudge?
I wasn't too like angry with the balance. I liked a lot of the changes they did. I'll just shout out again to like how they did the balancing. I thought was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they took something away from a card, they also added something in a lot of cases. Like Weirding Stones, for example, they upped its mana cost, but then they also upped its toughness. I really like things like that. I think like Anivia was definitely an issue, and I think they did. I don't remember what they were, but someone screenshot and showed. I think there's some changes to Anivia.
Changed her a bunch, I think.
It looked like very different. And for like I played a lot of like Anivia, Dawn and Dust decks, and some I played a lot of Anivia because she's probably my second favorite card.
I saw you had like that Reanimator Anivia,
yeah, she's great. I love her. Like I think it's Heimerdinger and then Anivia as far as my favorite champs. But she was definitely very hard to deal with, and a lot of people complained that her recursion is too strong, et cetera, for too early. So I could see, I think they showed her at 7 mana. I don't remember.
Yeah,
but
bumped her up a little bit.
I kind of want to see Draven back a little better.
Yeah.
He
hurt.
Draven was very, very good, and then I didn't see any Draven in the last closed beta at all. Like I never saw him appear except for in Expedition. I'd like to see him back at 4 attack.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. Charmer, anything that you want to see changed or buffed, nerfed?
This is a hard one for me to answer.
Okay.
For NDA reasons.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pivot and answer a question that you didn't ask.
Sure.
And I'll say that mechanics that don't exist yet that I'd like to see in future sets would be things like what I'll just affectionately call ambush, right? So Legends of Runeterra has the ability for you to play spells at different speeds, and that impacts combat, but we don't have any units that we can play at what I'll call fast speed. So I think it would be really interesting if we get, even if it's not like on a lot of units, but on a small handful, I immediately think of like how cool would it be if the next set gives us Rengar and Kha'Zix, and maybe they both have ambush, and you can play them like from your hand into like a blocking position, like they pounce on somebody. But the caveat would be that you can't use spell mana for them because they're not a spell. But stuff like that, I think would be a cool like design space to explore. But yeah, as far as like patch note stuff, I guess we'll just say you've got to wait till the 22nd to hear what I have to say about those things because I can't talk about it right now. Sorry.
Fair enough. What? Oh God, I'm blanking on the card. So we've been gone for so long, and we didn't even get to play that much either. So I'm still like, I'm still getting the card names and everything back in my mind. But it's the counter spell, the one that everyone hates. Deny. It's not even counter spell. It's negate, right? It's not. It's not cancel. It's negate. And Charmer, I don't know what you can and cannot say about deny, but my personal thought on Deny is that it's in a fine place. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because people like this is the I think this more than any other card has been debated and
Yeah.
on both like it's I've seen both ends of the spectrum of this card's overpowered and needs to be nerfed and shouldn't be in the game to it's not even good. Like I've seen I've seen both sides, and usually when that happens there's something at least there's an interesting
Yeah.
interesting conversation there. Prismat in
So
the
it's
chat
not-
is saying that Deny was the same in the trailer, so that's what I know at least.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll just talk about it in the way that it was in the last preview patch, and the way that I believe it showed up in the trailer, which is it was 3 cost, and it's not quite negate either, because one of the things that I think people miss
Right.
is that you can also target skills, and so
Right.
skills are
Yes.
like comes into play abilities or things that trigger off
Yeah.
of minions. So like Anivia used to have, and may or may not still have, that thing where when she attacks, she does damage to the opposing board. That's a skill.
Yes.
If somebody has a comes into play effect like Mina Swiftfoot, that's a skill. So Deny can stop non-burst spells and then skills. And in my opinion, Deny is pretty well balanced, and I think it's a bit of a necessary evil because it is something that keeps the really powerful late game cards in check. Like there needs to be a risk, in my opinion, for you playing Ruination, right? If you're going to
Yes.
spend 9 mana and try to blow up the board, there needs to be a risk involved there. And Deny represents that risk. But in most cases, and I say most because I do know there are some spells that do create minions, but in most cases, you're using Deny to not really impact advancing your board state.
Yes.
Right? You're usually using it to protect a board state. You're also usually using Deny to, how do I want to put it? Like just mitigate something. So like Mina Swiftfoot is another great example, right? Or Rasa, who's one of my favorite cards in the game. You still get the body with those. Like if you stop a skill or a trigger, there's still going to be a body associated with that, right? And I don't know, it never really felt overpowered to me. It certainly can swing games. Like if you need a Ruination to go off to win the game and it gets denied, like, yeah,
It sucks, but it happens.
it sucks. But that's no different, in my opinion, than like hard removal, right? At the end of the day, Deny is really like just hard removal for spells. So if I'm getting ready to attack for lethal, or I need to block you, and then somebody uses a hard removal card to get rid of my creature, right? I think Shadow Isles has what was it? Vengeance is the straight up like just nuke a unit.
Yeah.
I think that's
So. It's no different in my mind than like, hey, my big body got removed by Vengeance. At the end of the day, anytime that you're using something that removes or denies or does something like that, there's going to be one player who likes it and one player who doesn't. Right? There's this there's balance between things, and neither people are going to be like happy about that in most cases. So.
Well, even with your example of Ruination, like it sucks when you're the person playing Ruination, it gets denied, but it also sucks being the player that just got Ruinationed. Like either way, it's not like both things can suck. But I agree. Like if we don't have effects like that, that's when things like War Mother's Call or Dawn and Dusk, like weird combos, Pursuit of Perfection, because it's one of my favorite cards. Things like that, like they get so powerful.
By the way.
It should be uncounterable. But, like War Mother's Call can just take over the game. So having a way to stop that is, I think, healthy for the game as a whole.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's not, well, it's preventative, and it's not advancing your board. It's not preventing them a lot of the time from advancing their board. So, high card game concept here, tempo. It's a tempo neutral or tempo negative play because you're discarding a card and you're not advancing your board at all. So those are things that I think, and I'm making a generalization here. I think competitive card game players understand and appreciate the necessity of having a card like like deny or negate or cancel or
I
counterspell.
actually want to push back there. I actually think
Okay.
that's the source of most frustration, is that it's actually very often tempo positive. And it's tempo positive in the realm of expenditure of resources. So
Sure. Yep.
I think the reason that it frustrates people is that if I use Vengeance to nuke a creature, I spent 7, and I likely use that to kill something that costs the same or less.
Sure.
Right? So I'm expending more resources than like what was removed, and that is my, how I balance that, right? Like that's my drawback for getting something like Vengeance off. Whereas with Deny, especially because this game has this really cool and unique concept of spell mana that you can bank, I can essentially spend like free mana as long as I planned for it to shut off some of the most powerful spells in the game, right? So I think that if anything, that's the big source of frustration, is it feels like my opponent did very little to stop something really powerful like Ruination, whereas when you go on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of the removal effects in this game are what I think a lot of people would view as being overcosted. Now, again, a lot of that has to do with the existence of spell mana in my mind. And it's also, in my opinion, because they want this to be a board-centric game. The entire point is to have your champions hit the board, have them interact with other units. So if your cost ratio for removal to the units that you're playing is off, then you're going to have people playing, decks that run very little units at all. I don't think that's what they want. So I think most of your traditional removal is overcosted. And then you have something like Deny that to an average player, even if they can't articulate it well, I think that they just feel like it feels undercosted for the effect, right? Because I'm spending 3 to shut off things that cost 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And that is, I think, the source of frustration for a lot of players.
Yeah, it does. It does. I guess that is still technically tempo positive. It's not, I guess.
Yeah, because like you go to play Ruination and I stop it for 3 and then I play another threat on top of it. Like that's the worst feeling.
Or you have a threat and you have the 3 up for free because of spell mana. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right there. But even given that, I think the opposite, or not the opposite, but the world where there isn't a card like that is the one where we're getting blown out by these 12 mana spells, these 9 mana spells all the time. And there's no, like you said, I mean, the cost would be you have to survive to that point, but there are, board wipes. There are, pyroclasm type effects where you're killing all these 5/1s and 5/2s for 2 mana. Like that's the eternal rock, paper, scissors, the aggro versus control versus combo. And without Deny or an effect like Deny, like if there's no counter spells and all of your spells have the spell can't be countered. And if you put that on a bunch of Magic cards, think of a card like Tooth and Nail from Magic. And I'm sorry for the people who have no idea what I'm talking about, this 20-year-old card. But if that card had, and in a lot of cases you can give it that with other cards, this card can't be countered, or you're playing against a deck that can't counter it, that card's value goes up precipitously, and you can build your entire deck and strategy around, I need to get to a point where I can resolve this spell, and this will win me the game.
Yeah.
So
I think also, like, because I actually did a YouTube video on about Deny. I feel like it being in specifically Ionia, like it's only in one faction. So there's a lot of times when you are building these combo decks or specific decks, there's so many times I'm like, well, I'm trying to win with this weird combo. I need a way to protect this combo. So I have to play Ionia now. Like I just need to play this faction.
Right.
And it kind of leads to like weird deck building ideas.
Yeah. The color, or I guess region pie right now is, obviously we're in the first set, so I'm not expecting everything, but
it's interesting because if people feel like, okay, I have to play Ionia now, if anything, to me, that speaks to why that card needs to exist.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Simply because like you're feeling at such a disadvantage that if I don't have it, then things are bad. Well, then like imagine a world where it just didn't.
Where you don't have it, right?
Like it's going to be the Shadow Isles, Freljord, like I guess we're going to round 20 kinds of games. But that being said, like I said, I think a lot of the frustration just comes from the cost ratio. And I think there's a number of ways that you could address that. You could give mana back if something's canceled. You could make it just cost more. You could do something really, it might be kind of a coding nightmare. And in a base set, I think that it might be too confusing for some new players, but I think that you could do something where it's an X spell, right? So we do have the one spell that does it with damage, where you spend basically all your available mana.
Yeah.
You could have something where deny instead, its cost had to be equal to whatever it was countering, right? So like that way you never feel like you're at that cost disadvantage. I shut down Ruination, but it costs me 9 as well.
Right.
But on the other end, it could be something where it feels really powerful still, because if you're using it to shut down a skill and the skill doesn't have an inherent cost itself because the cost is on the card. So I'm thinking like Mina Swiftfoot. Well, then like you countered a really powerful effect for almost essentially free. Yeah, they still got the body out of it, but I think that could have been something where, like, at least as far as like player feeling goes, it would help mitigate that, like, that ratio issue. But at the end of the day, like, I haven't ever felt like 3 was an issue, and even if it went to 4, I don't think that it would like dip too far in play as well. But like 3 felt fine to me through the 2 preview events.
Yeah. 3 feels good to me. I almost like the fact that it is pseudo free, because it's not actually free, right? Because you are paying a cost in, like, either in your own tempo from not playing, using all of your mana every turn, or having to wait to play spells. And I would probably be fine with it going up to 4, if only to appease people, but I don't think it needs to go to 4. And I think part of it is also, and we won't spend too much more time on this, people who don't care about the card deny, I'm sorry. But I think it's possibly that a lot of people in the preview patch just wanted to play their cool thing and explore and play every big dumb thing, because that's what everyone wants to do when you're not playing in a competitive meta and you just have a bunch of cards and there's not like I mean, there were some like net decks going around, but they weren't, it was streamers posting things. So if you don't look at that at all and you're just like, oh, I want to play the cards. Well, I want to play all these expensive cards because I get more mana than I do in Magic. So I'm going to play all these big spells, and then, oh, well, I guess it gets denied. Or like you see that in Magic, and like, unless it's like a 1 mana counter, 1 or 2 mana is where people draw the line in Magic, but 3 mana counter spell, it's
and there's another part of me that also wonders whether or not it has to do with its placement in what I'll call like the region pie. I think it's properly in Ionia because it fits the flavor of that region, because that region is very much what I would call up tempo in terms of style, right? It in my opinion, I think it thrives on playing somewhere between like 1 to 3 threats, and then you just spend the rest of your time protecting them. So whether it's an elusive threat that you're just trying to get through every turn, or whether it's you're using like bounce effects with Yasuo to get blockers out of the way and then get your damage in. It's very much like a kind of stick and move, dodgy kind of region / faction, and deny fits beautifully there. But when you combine all of those together, again, it can lead to a source of frustration, because it's like, I played my dude and they bounced it. I tried to remove their guy and they countered it. I went to do this, but they had elusive, right? So I do feel like while deny, again, you can make some very valid complaints against it, I think part of the frustration from that card does likely just come from Ionia and their play style as well.
Yeah. Turns out after 30 years, people still hate playing against blue, no matter.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, and if you're coming from Magic and you've just been playing against Simic Flash for what feels like the last 2 years, the last thing you want to do is run into it over here.
Yeah, that's true. Riot, please hot fix Runeterra and Put Oko in. I hope that's a change. Hey, Charmer is Oko, just blink twice if Oko is in the next has been hot fixed into the game.
If they've added Oko from Magic.
I'm not saying they've added Oko, I'm just saying that I'm an elk.
Okay. That's all the confirmation we need.
Yeah, so confirmed Oko is in Legends of Runeterra. It's been confirmed.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you heard it here and also last.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go and move on here into some strategy for us going into the open beta. So I want to know, and we'll start with you, Charmer. What what region are you picking first to unlock? What's your week 1 or day 1 plan to start diving into Runeterra?
For me, my own personal plan is I will probably do my first expedition run and then kind of see what I open from there. But as far as like the region that I'm going to target, once you get done with the prologue, I don't know if you guys remember, but there's like a prologue period where you kind of get generic rewards.
Yeah.
They had that during the first preview patch, and then after that's when you choose your region. Once you get to the region, for me, it's going to be between Shadow Isles and Demacia. And the reason there is like my min-max side wants to pick Shadow Isles, because as far as the regions go, Shadow Isles is like the jack of all trades, master of none, in my opinion. They're a very safe pick because they do a little bit of everything. If you want to play aggro, there's ways that you can do that with a lot of the cool ephemeral tricks. But if you want to play control, Shadow Isles has got you covered there too. They've got Ruination, again, both in mid-range and in control. I think Rasa is just a powerhouse of a card. That's where Vengeance lives. So if you want a safe region that like you can pick and then still kind of cover all of your play styles, I think that one's a good choice. But just me personally, I am a really big fan of like aggressive decks that feature Lucian and Pursuit to give you that second attack phase. And so I'm going back and forth between like, do I want to just go with Demacia because I think that I think that there is a legitimate aggressive deck that's going to be decent based around Lucian, or do I want to go with something that I think is going to be more conducive to multiple play styles, which I think is what Shadow Isles would be.
Saucy, what are you going for?
I think my first region is going to be Piltover and Zon. I love me some Heimerdinger. I love me some Ezreal. I don't know. I like everything. I like just stuff the faction does as well. But I think after I get a good base, Shadow Isles is going to be where I go, just because Shadow Isles feels like one of the best like secondary factions to just have in your deck, because there's so many, like they have so many good toolboxy cards, such good removal, so many good combo effects. It's just a solid choice. So I think Shadow Isles is going to be one of those factions that fits into a lot of play styles, kind of like Charmer was saying.
Yeah, I agree there. I mean, I'm going for my my Noxus. Like, give me my 5/1s, give me my 5/2s. Draven and Katarina are in that one, right? Noxus. Am I thinking of the right thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm going for, because I'm a filthy mono red player at the end of the day. So I'll definitely be going that. Or I don't know. I might be swayed over to make the Teemo deck, but I feel like everyone's gonna be making the Teemo decks. And
Maybe I don't know if it's going to be the same.
I hope everyone makes the Teemo deck, because that's going to make my job a whole lot easier.
Yeah. I think once we're like not in the fun beta stage where we have a ranked ladder, I think less people are going to be playing around with fun Teemo decks.
Oh, I'm going for an aggro Teemo deck. Okay, Reynad.
Well, yeah,
he's
the best aggro card ever.
The best deck in the format with Teemo aggro. So I mean,
I wouldn't even run Teemo in my aggro deck. That's right. There's your hot take. Teemo is not an aggro card. The elusive stat line on his mediocre body is not worth it. Like, if you want to run elusive aggro, then just run Ionia, where there's better elusive cards.
You just called Teemo's body mediocre? It's Teemo.
He needs to hit the gym, man.
Mediocre, more like meaty ogre.
Yeah,
that made no sense.
Swole. There's gonna be the alternate art Swole Teemo. Let's go.
It's gonna be the Teemo that's actually Annie's Tibbers from the league 10th anniversary skin. It's just the giant Teemo. Yeah, that's the one.
Teemo's a beautiful boy.
He is. I
mean, listen, like, Teemo's fun, and there's some cool combos you can do with him, like the Teemo Ionia combo, where like you play multiple Teemos at the same time, and then suddenly you put like 100 shrooms in your opponent's deck is neat. I'm not sure it's consistent enough to really like bank on though, but like I don't know. I've seen too many times where I've given my opponent like 70 mushrooms, and then they're still drawing a card and taking one damage.
Yeah.
And like I said, his body like standalone is kind of garbage, and he just doesn't do enough for you. I'm just not a fan of Teemo, like from a competitive standpoint. Like, listen, if you want to do like highlight reel stuff, if you want to meme, if you like Teemo as a champion, I'm not telling you how to play the game. You go do you. But like, if I was expected to cast a tournament tomorrow and somebody said like, what kind of decks do you expect to see? Teemo would not be on my list.
Listen here, Charmer. All I have to say is never underestimate the power of the Scouts code. That's all I have to say.
I don't know if I have if I have the ability to make my voice
a Teemo voice.
Right.
Hello.
What's
Never underestimate.
Nope, that doesn't sound it. That was
that's
terrifying. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
What's Teemo's weapon again?
The blow dart.
And do you know why that is?
Is it,
Oh,
is it
don't you
because he
dare say
blows?
this.
Teemo Blows.
Oh my gosh, I'm off the show. I'm out.
Oh no, yep, saucy. I just got an email that said I resign. Weird.
Hyped up and ready.
he just
It's on my stream deck. I'm like, resign.
Like Teemo is so not expected to be part of like the competitive meta that Draven literally has a voice line that when Teemo shows up, he says, "What the is that?"
Yeah.
Like
What
in
the-
game. Yeah. It's one of my subscriber emotes on my Twitch channel. After the first preview patch, the very first time I heard that, I was like, that's it. I'm setting it.
It's so
That's
good.
going to be a thing.
It is very good. I don't know. I had very middling success with the Teemo aggro deck. I mean,
Oh, I did horrible with Teemo decks. Like the same thing happened. All right, he's got 100 puff caps in his deck. He drew 3. What? Come on.
I don't even think I don't think that it's Teemo's fault inherently that he's bad in the aggro deck. The problem is he on his own is fine, but you want to run more puff cap cards, and those cards are like aggressively mediocre.
I was actually going to say I think it's the other way around. I think Teemo's the biggest problem with the puff cap deck.
All right,
I think there are better.
Get him out of here.
I think there are
Who
better
is
cards-
this guy?
I think there are better cards to more consistently give your opponent puff caps. And I think that there are better cards at being consistently aggressive. Like Teemo is bad at both of his roles right now, in my opinion. And I think that's the biggest issue.
So what I'm hearing is we need a Teemo buff. So Riot, you heard it.
There you go.
Teemo buff. We
Teemo's
need
a 4/4.
Now I will say this. I do think that Teemo, like if you wanted to make Teemo not be memey, if you wanted to make it competitive, and I honestly don't think that's Riot is, I don't think that's their goal.
Mhm.
And I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you wanted to do it, I don't think buffing Teemo directly would be the way to go. I actually think that you would go through a process of indirect buffs. Like sometimes the best way to buff a card is to introduce other cards that play on the strategy. Like one of the things we don't have enough of right now is ways to make your opponent draw cards. Right? Think about Magic Underworld Dreams, because that's
Yeah.
what Teemo is. Teemo is a poor man's Underworld Dreams.
True.
So if you had a way where like I could say, okay, make my opponent draw 5 cards this turn, well, now you have a finisher for your Teemo deck. But like that stuff just doesn't exist right
true.
now. So you're just stuck praying. And and that's part of why I think that Riot doesn't want them to be a competitive thing, because random effects that can sometimes determine games is fun, but when you go and I think you need them in games. Like I'm not an anti-RNG person by any means, but then when you go to like the top parts of the ladder, you want skill to shine more, and so I think they want Teemo to exist, but they don't want him to be competitive.
Yeah.
I think that it would be like if in League of Legends they introduced a champion that every time you press Q it does a random ability, and suddenly that starts showing up in the LCS. Like people are going to complain, right? I think that games being won or lost by somebody drawing 15 puff caps on a card versus 1 on a card is just not going to be what people want to see at the top of a ladder or winning tournaments. So I think Teemo is cool. I think I'm happy that he exists, and I think there are ways that you can buff him and do more with his kit. But at the end of the day, I think that his power level will always be a little bit behind the curve, and I think that's by design.
That makes sense. I mean, is it really someone who is better at math than me needs to figure out like how much damage does adding 5 puff caps like on average do in a however many card deck? Like that's we need a Teemo calculator. Like if there's 40 cards in the deck and there's 100 puff caps, like over the rest of the
I mean,
game, how many?
it's just your puff caps divided by cards in your deck. Like that's your average expectation, right? Like that's your
true.
expected value. But even then, like,
Yeah.
your expected value is always low. Like, let's say by the time I get 50 puff caps in your deck, it's when we've played enough of the game, because there's 40 cards in a deck, so we've played enough of the game so that there's like 25 cards left, right?
Right.
So in my head, every time you draw a card, you should be taking 2 damage. That's still not very impressive for all the work that goes into getting 50 puff caps in somebody's deck.
True. That's true.
Yep. So he's going to be a 4/4 confirmed buff.
Yeah. So he's gonna put 20 puff caps in instead of 5 or whatever it is.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's make it 30.
Just make every time you draw him, he adds, every time you draw him or play him or he attacks, instead of putting puff caps in the deck, you just get one of the puff cap spells added to your hand.
Ooh.
So it's not as easy to get. It costs mana to put them in, but you get more of them. I'm thinking here, Riot. If you're looking for a card designer, I'm right here, and that's a free idea. You can use it. You can just put me as a story by on the credits of the show. Okay, let's go in. We've got a couple more things here before we round out the show. I know your answer, Saucy, because I know what your thoughts on constructed versus limited are. But Charmer, are you going to be focusing more on the constructed side or the limited side in general and in the beginning of Runeterra?
I'll probably be playing a lot of both in the beginning, just because one of the things that I think I do best, just from like a content perspective, is that I'm very new player friendly. I've taught college courses, right? Like, I've worked in education. I've got a lot of that ability to kind of guide people through things. And I think that there's going to be folks that want to be playing expeditions, because that's a great way to expand your collection and get exposed to the different cards if you're not familiar with the game. So I think early on, just, as like my own public service, if you will, I'll probably be covering both, but I'm much more of like a constructed guy. I like taking a theme or an idea and trying to make it work and fiddling with it. Obviously, from like an esports casting standpoint, I need to be very in tune with what the meta is, how they interact, what are good counters, so that I can provide proper analysis, because I pride myself in doing that really well. So I will likely, like, long-term focus on constructed more than limited. I will say I love what they did with limited. I actually think it was the last time I was on this podcast, actually, where I had talked about what I wanted to see them do with limited, which was go with like pools of cards, because that increases your replayability. And then it turns out that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
But now that they have done that, and I'm a big fan of that from like a player experience standpoint, you introduce a new issue, which is, how do you support limited as a competitive format?
Right.
And what I mean by that is that, the expedition experience right now, when you play it just like as a player, you're drafting from pools, but then like when you win or lose games, you get to draft new cards, add to your deck, improve upon it as you go. You get to play through 2 runs. All that stuff is very like player first, player friendly. But that format doesn't lend itself to like, hey, we're going to do like a competitive draft format.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something that they're going to support, or if it is what that's going to look like later on. This is a game that does not have packs in the traditional sense.
Right.
So there is no like, well, we'll just do a booster draft. I'll throw up air quotes when I say that. So I'm very curious to see what they do on that front. And if they come out with a different mode that's more aimed at a competitive limited format, then I'm sure I will play a bunch of that. Again, just to kind of do my homework for tournament reasons. But for the most part, like at the start, it'll be a bit of both, and then I'll probably devolve into a bunch of constructed content.
Yeah. For me, it'll probably, I want it, like, I love limited and draft, but I think given the limitations of like, you're only getting prizes on what, 2 or whatever, like expeditions a week or whatever I don't remember what their limitations are, but or what they were, at least it could change. I I just know that in my degenerate mind, I'm not going to want to play limited just for the sake of playing it. I would rather play ranked. Now, if there's a ranked expedition mode, that's a different story. That they could do that theoretically, or have a rank tied to it. In which case, maybe I will do that.
There's no reason they couldn't.
No reason that I know of, at least.
Yeah.
So
You might see third parties do that. So I know that like Mobalytics, because they're the ones who have the like deck tracker, right? They've already got some APIs kind of hooked into the game. Depending on what kind of game information they're getting back, even if there's no official rank, you could see third parties do things like expedition leaderboards.
True.
Like that sort of thing.
That would be really cool. So I think if there is some sort of leaderboard or ranked mode for that, I will probably play that a lot, though I'm going to be playing constructed too. And Saucy, I know you're all about that constructed world.
Yeah. I will say, I think that expeditions are some of the coolest take on limited that I've seen, with it being a digital card game. It's tough because you're not like, a lot of the appeal of drafting in Magic is you're at a table with people and you can kind of play off the table, like to see what people are drafting. You can't do that in digital. I love what they did with expeditions, but limited is lame and constructed is awesome.
Boo this, man. I mean, constructed
I just like building.
awesome.
Listen, I like building my Pursuit of Perfection decks and playing 3 to 4 cats. Let's go.
I like playing Pursuit of Perfection decks in limited because I drafted them, and then they give me cards that make those work.
No, you did not.
Yeah, they
you draft. No, listen, I've watched you draft, and all you do is draft Draven every single time.
I'm a simple man. I see a 5
like,
power 2 drop. I take a 5 power 2 drop.
I need 5 attack for 2 mana. My name is Blevins. Please put me in some kind of counseling.
Me go face. Go face. Can we get some smorks in the chat, please? Okay. Last question we have here was actually a listener question from a while ago that I wanted to talk about before we get going here. And this one is from Salvi B in the Discord, which is, again, over at discord.me/Runeterrable Radio. If you're listening, make sure you go check that out. We've got it's super active now because everyone is super hyped, and we're all talking about all that good stuff. But Salvi asked, do you think that any region would be able to produce any deck type regardless of the meta? Like, could there be an aggro or control deck for every region? So would we be able to see like a PNZ control deck and a PNZ aggro deck? Kind of like we see Zoo Warlock and Zoo Handlock. What do you think, Charmer?
I mean, the answer to that question is, yeah, you can see whatever you want. The question is whether or not they'll be good.
Yeah.
Right? And the answer to that question would be, right now, with just the base set and just what we've seen from the 2 preview patches, no. Now, that's not to say that you can't take certain regions and combine them to offset the, pros and cons of each region. But like, if you're trying to build a, Noxus control deck with Noxus as like your core, you just don't have the tools there.
Yeah.
Similarly, like if you're trying to build a Freljord aggro deck, that's not to say Freljord doesn't have some good early drops, because they've got some that are good, but you're not going to have like a heavy Freljord successful aggressive deck. That's just not what that region is built around mechanically right now. Now, new cards come along, new mechanics become introduced. Yeah, sure, there are things that you can add to those regions in the future, blah blah blah. That's why I mentioned earlier that I think Shadow Isles is a safe pick as far as a region goes for a new player, because they are the ones that are like jack of all trades, master of none, right?
Yeah.
Like they can go aggro for sure. I don't think that they do it as well as say Noxus does, but they certainly have some great aggressive cards. Yeah. Similarly, they have some great late game cards. Do they have
Shark Chariot?
She Who Wanders? No, but they've got some great late game cards as well. So I think that they're just like a good safe toolbox, kind of like pair this with another region, kind of region themselves. So yeah, I think that if the question is, can there be a good aggro and control deck for every region with just the base set based on what we have seen from the preview patches, I would say no.
I think. Yeah. Do you want to go?
No, I want you to go.
Okay. I think I'm gonna agree with Charmer as far as like if there's gonna be a highly competitive tier 1 aggro and control deck for every single region, probably not. But what's really cool about deck building in this game is like being able to, I think you could see a splash of each of these regions and like a semi-competitive deck for every archetype. And like everyone has tools that work in both, but like you said, like having your Noxus control deck probably not going to be as good as your Shadow Isles Freljord control deck. But there's still like, and like obviously we're just talking base set, but there's the option to, like I was splashing Ionia for some of their, deny into every control deck and things like that. Like I think that since you do get to pick 2 regions, it makes it very interesting, and you can see splashes in particular things. But every archetype's going to have the things they're strong at. Like for if you're looking into Magic terms, like red and Magic is very good at aggro, but there's been times in history where we've had really good control red decks.
Big red.
Yeah, like you could have big red, you could have scred red, like there's things that exist for that. And this game feels kind of similar to that, which if you're comparing to other games like Hearthstone, you don't always have really good control hunter decks or really a good aggressive priest decks, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, we always almost since the beginning of Hearthstone, we've always seen a handlock variant and a zoo variant. We almost always just see an aggro hunter, but there's control or mid-range hunter decks, and like there are times when like hunter mid-range and aggro hunter are both good. There's time. I mean,
there was a time when the dev team thought hunter was going to be a control hero.
Yeah,
I honestly
like their hero power was designed to be like
the
their
kill
win
condition. I've tried to build hunter like that. It doesn't really work, but I
it doesn't.
That. Well, I mean,
and it's also like if you're looking into like this game has one set, right? We're in a basic classic set, but as the game evolves, when you get into an eternal format, like if you're looking into eternal formats and Magic or Hearthstone, like Hunter and Hearthstone, there's really good tier 1 control hunter decks. But if you have a limited card pool, Hunter as a class is more aggressive. And I think we'll see the same thing. Like when we have 4 years of sets, we'll probably have some really good control Noxus cards. But right now it's like, I mean, you're smacking them in the face, right?
I just hope they print more 5-power 2-drops. So
they will. I mean,
40 5-power 2-drops, and
let's go.
I also
want to be the name of the deck.
They'll do it, but we'll also have like 30 avalanches, 40 mystic shots.
Exactly.
Like,
it's fine.
It's an ebb and a flow, man.
It is true. And we have ebbed for quite a while, but now we will flow into the end of the show. That might have been the best transition I've ever made.
Some might say best, others might say worst. Who's the judge?
Judy.
I'm the judge. Yeah, there's only one judge in this world, Judge Judy.
She's my spirit animal.
That is interesting. But let's flow right into the end here. Charmer, thank you again for coming on. Is there anything you want to sell out, shout out, plug? The floor is yours.
Yeah, follow me on Twitch, YouTube, Down a Dark Alley, whichever way you want to do it. Just make sure you're following me. I'll be streaming a lot during the opening weekend. I'm gonna have some videos launching on my YouTube channel both before the official launch and like timed with the launch, so like patch notes, rundowns, things like that. Once I'm cleared from the old NDA and I can post that stuff, it'll be there. So I'm doing a lot of filming right now, and it'll be out as soon as it's approved.
Very nice, very nice. Saucy, where can people find you on the internet and webs?
I'm everywhere, just Saucy Mailman. I've been putting out a ton of gameplay videos that I've kind of stockpiled from the last closed beta in Runeterra on YouTube. So just youtube.com/Saucy Mailman. I've got a bunch of Pursuit of Perfection gameplay and a lot of Teemo gameplay because that's what I played a lot of, goofy stuff. But then I stream on Twitch 4 days a week at just Saucy Mailman.
Nice. You can find me on the internet at _Blevins on Twitter. That's the best place to find me personally, but you can find the show's stuff at Runeterrable on Twitter, discord.me/Runeterrable Radio, and iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff. Runeterrable Radio. We are launching, or we are putting the We're going to start putting the episodes on YouTube as well.
Yep.
So if that's your fancy, you can find us on YouTube. I literally activated the account today, so we don't have the
Like
fancy
3 hours ago.
Yeah, not even. So we don't have the fancy name yet, but it will be in the Discord. The number one place you can go to find all the stuff is discord.me/Runeterrable Radio. Again, Charmer, thank you so much for being on the second time,
thanks for coming.
but like you said, the third time is the charm.
That's right.
That is right.
Yeah, I'm surprised he even decided to come back. I don't know.
I mean, I know I wouldn't want to be back on this. Wait. Okay, before I dig myself into more of a hole, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you everyone for listening. For Saucy Mailman, for Charmer, I'm the Levins, and we will catch you guys next week because we're back on a regular schedule because Runeterra keep doing stuff. We're gonna be back. We'll see you guys later. I fucking love that song so much. It's so good.
It works, right? It works.